guidance for policy, but also to solve problems for emergency care systems for Uganda. Okay. Right now, the society has over 400 members, and we discuss a lot of issues, again, in regards to emergency care. We've supported the government in policy development. For example, the EMS policy that was launched in November 2021, the society gave guidance and advice in regards to some of the things that the policy addressed, but also in the EMS strategic plan that was created again by the ministry, the society again guided in that roadmap. What emergency care is it's the practice of medicine that offers assistance to someone who is critically ill, and we want to avoid death, we want to avoid disability. And what people, I would kind of relate it to, do you remember those sitcoms when we were growing up? ER, I think it was a famous sitcom called ER.
Yeah.
Yes, so it's a very adrenaline rushed kind of practice, because you are the first on scene, and that means if someone has had an accident or someone is in need of emergency care, the first line care that is given to a patient in that first 1 hour of having an injury or having an illness. That is how I can summarize emergency care.
Okay, clearly you've done a good one
at
that now, and that's why I want to bring in my brother Cliff there to just also throw more light to this. Now, where does ambulance work come in, or ambulance practice come in this whole emergency care thing? She has brought out the aspect of that immediate need to answer to a casualty or whatever has happened to avoid further. Now, where does the ambulance whole contribution come in?
Okay, thank you, Felix.
And maybe also research what is an ambulance. Lately, I have seen someone as what qualifies something to be an ambulance. I've had also issues, and I also agree, viewers, people putting on siren lights. A couple of weeks ago, we saw, I think the Rotary had tuk-tukus. Now, and we had a very big, some people took it to as a laughable issue. Yes. So let's start with the issue, what is an ambulance and what qualifies an ambulance to be an ambulance?
Thank you, Felix. You are not different from many other people who have asked a similar question. An ambulance is a vehicle, or it is an equipment that is meant to provide care in transit, that responds quickly to an emergency, to any person who has life-threatening illness and needs to be evacuated from where the problem has happened to the nearest facility. But when you see the spectrum of ambulances, there are different types of ambulances. And even if you mention tuk-tuk is also part of an ambulance. But I will explain to you that there are about 3 or 5 different types of ambulances. Okay. Now, we have type A, type B, type C, type D, even there's also type F or E. Now, type A ambulance is that vehicle that must have a bed inside the vehicle, and in this vehicle, there must be equipment to monitor the person. And this particular type A ambulance is that type of ambulance which is transporting a patient probably to a next facility, but the person's life is not at really much danger, and therefore the equipment in the ambulance mainly is a bed where the person can sit and rest, and a health worker to sit inside the ambulance. Then the person can be monitored, but his life is not really so much at danger. That's ambulance type A. And therefore, it qualifies to be an ambulance because it can carry a patient, and a health worker can sit there and monitor the patient. Then we have type B. Type B ambulance is what we call basic life support ambulance. Now, a basic life support ambulance is slightly different from type A, in a way that in that ambulance, there's still a bed, but in that ambulance, there must be a monitoring equipment, something like a computer where you can connect the person, then there must be some equipment to monitor how much oxygen this person is getting when he's in transit. And then there must be, a machine, if the person stops breathing, he can actually be resuscitated quickly. And then inside this ambulance, there must be a trained health worker who is supposed to provide that care.
At what level? At what level, if you don't mind?
Could be an emergency technician, could be a nurse.
Okay.
Okay, but he has skills in providing basic life support. So
and
when
in
you
type
say
A, we didn't. Who's supposed to be in type A?
type A should be an emergency technician.
Okay.
Emergency technician is somebody who's trained particularly to provide care in an emergency.
Okay.
Okay. Now, type B, you need a qualified nurse or a qualified health worker who can provide basic life support with the use of equipments.
All right.
Now we have type
C.
C. Type C is actually a moving hospital. Okay? A moving hospital in a way that it has more advanced equipments and that it can even have life support machine. There are some equipment which are called life support machine. For example, if a person stops breathing, okay, and you want to make this person breathe because he doesn't have any way he can breathe because of the illness, and then the machines can be put on this person to breathe. We call them a ventilator. So this person must have, this ambulance must have a ventilator. It must have oxygen inside. It must have drugs. It must have fluids that can be given to the person in that process. So this ambulance particularly is quite special in a way that as it is moving, care is being provided and the person is being resuscitated. Even any advanced way of treating the person can still be done on the way to the hospital, to the next facility. Then we have type D. Type D can be categorized as ambulances that are only responding to the site to go and respond to an emergency. For example, the likes of a motorcycle that must be used by a trained doctor, a trained nurse, or a trained EMT who has been called to at somebody's home or at a particular place, is responding to go and help a person who has developed a very severe illness
in a particular location.
In a particular location. Yes. So
locality.
This could be a motorcycle and somebody who is highly trained to go and provide treatment for
so
that.
So motorcycle is an ambulance in terms of facilitating the movement
to that site.
Okay.
Okay. The naming of this particular one may not matter, but it is a motorcycle that is used by a trained, qualified health worker who is highly skilled to go and provide emergency care. But we also have boat ambulances.
Oh, yes.
You have marine ambulances. We are very glad Uganda has actually acquired boats that are actually ambulances in Lake Victoria, Lake Kyoga, Lake Albert. They're actually doing the same. So you could also be type A, type B, type C boat ambulance. But you also have air ambulance.
Oh, yes.
Air ambulance includes the helicopter.
Do we have one here?
Well, we do not have, but we work together with the other organization that are within the country that have helicopter emergency, and they can actually be called to take a patient. Even they can be a helicopter, they can be a fixed wing plane that can also be used to take patient. And those ones are now more advanced. They are like type C, but for them they can of course fly with the patient, and they are very fast in evacuating the patient to next destination. So
back to our question now, having given us that quite educative glimpse into the types and what. Back to the question, what's the space for ambulance work in emergency care?
The space?
Yes.
In terms
what's
of
the role? What's how? Yeah.
Okay. The role of ambulance is to facilitate quick evacuation of a patient. At the same time, providing care in transit. So once a patient requires an urgent treatment and maybe an emergency, and this emergency could happen in a facility that doesn't have capacity to take care of that person in that place, and then that's when the ambulance comes in to transfer this person to the nearest designated facility which has the capacity to treat that patient. Now, you will find that in different hospitals, not every hospital provides care at the same level. There are different levels of facilities in this country. We have health center 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I mean 2, 3, 4, and the general hospital, national referral hospital, or regional referral hospital. Now, in each of these hospitals, the type of care that is provided there, or the categories of cadres of people who are specialized in giving care also varies. While in a health center 4, it is at the level of a sub-county, it may not have equipment, it may not have personnel who can provide treatment for a very advanced problem on a patient. if this problem happens in Health Center 4, and then the Health Center 4 will call the ambulance to take this person to a regional referral hospital. Now, when this ambulance comes, the ambulance will need a qualified nurse or a doctor to transfer this person from Health Center 4 to the National Referral Hospital. So when you come to National Referral Hospital, you will have an ICU to provide this person, care for this patient. And then you will have advanced equipment that probably used for investigating what the problem with this patient is. And of course, a spectrum of different things that are more advanced. So the ambulance facilitates that kind of movement. But again, ambulance can also be used for transferring patients. You know, if the person has recovered, you can take the person home using ambulance type A. You remember the type A I told you about earlier? Yes. So the person has recovered, he needs to go back home. The person can be taken using that ambulance.
Oh, so also ambulances take patients back home?
Yes, they can take patients back home.
Wow.
Now, of course, one of the things that I want to let people know is that ambulances don't carry dead bodies. There's a particular type of ambulance that is designated for carrying dead bodies. That's what we call funeral service vehicles.
That's also an ambulance?
It's an ambulance, but it's a type of ambulance that's only for carrying dead bodies. So these are the ambulances for treating.
Carrying a dead person now, if it's supposed to deal with an emergency.
It's a funeral service vehicle, not necessarily an ambulance that's providing. So this ambulance that is a moving hospital is only carrying people who are still alive and who needs to be taken care of in transit to the destination where they require that advanced treatment.
Okay.
Yes.
Now I come back to emergency care, and there's this notion, probably by also our viewers. We have seen emergency units in hospitals, and we have also had scenarios where patients are taken, probably even by ambulances, by the Ndogo Cliffs. They take someone in the hospital, and the hospital says, in Uganda they normally say Tumusobola.
Yeah.
You know, then you have to take to another. So the person, the cliffs are suffering with someone the whole night from one place to another because is the presence of emergency care a must in every hospital, or where should it be? What type of hospital should have an emergency care? And also maybe to help our viewers understand much better what an emergency care unit should look like, or what should have, and who should be on such a unit.
Okay. So as Cliff was saying, there are different levels of care depending on the different type of facility that's available. Okay. Ideally, every health practitioner should be able to provide emergency care.
Oh.
Yes, awesome. They should.
In Uganda, we have had challenges. Just sorry to intervene, Dr. Doreen. People tell you that we don't have this person is not on ward. This you've had. I think you've had such scenarios in your practice.
Yes.
The nurses will say to Dr. Tali. Like most in even maternity, you've had some of these challenges.
Yeah. So let me explain. So the challenge is with human resource, but also infrastructure and equipment.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
So there are different levels of emergency care. There is basic emergency care, there is advanced emergency care. But every
What's the difference? Kindly help us understand that.
So every healthcare professional should be able to offer some sort of basic emergency care. And for lack of a better word, basic is like at the lowest level in an English term, the starting point to offer care to this patient. And in the concept of emergency medicine, there are certain procedures that we do, there are certain interventions that we do, and there are certain courses that are designed that are actually for resource-limited settings like Uganda.
Oh, yeah.
We don't need as so many advanced machines and equipment. There are certain maneuvers. As Africans, we are trained a lot to use our hands.
Yes.
And
as
exactly, and as clinicians, we should be able to utilize what's on ground. We should be able to make use of whatever little resources that we have. Let me give you an example. If I started choking right here, and I started having difficulty in breathing, a basic maneuver like positioning me in a particular way and opening my head in a particular way and tilting my neck can be enough to help me.
First we know how to punch someone in the back. At least that one.
So those basic maneuvers. So I think we need to go back to basics. We need to go back to the simple things. I had a teacher who once told me that learn to do the simple things and do them excellently. Because it's those simple things that's actually going to save your patient. So then when you move to other advanced levels of emergency care, that's when we move to advanced emergency care. That's when you're going to probably need this equipment and these machines. And as Cliff was saying, you might need like a mobile hospital and all these advanced things. And there's a certain level of training that comes with that. So one of the challenges is that most practitioners are running away from basics. Most practitioners are running away from responsibility. A patient is a patient, irrespective of where this patient is.
They're vulnerable.
Exactly. They've come to you for help. So we need to remind ourselves that let's go back to what we were taught, you know. We are trained to save life, we are trained to use our hands, we are trained to think out of the box. Okay, I'm not saying run away from standards and guidelines, but part of the standards that are developed for our country, our setting, are fine-tuned in such a way that we can use simple things, we can use simple maneuvers, and something as simple, like I said, as tilting my head back, is probably going to save my life. So sometimes it comes down to the different levels of care. Certain hospitals are not trained to offer certain sort of services by default, and that's how the system is made.
So
the health service system. Yes, referral is part of management. It is. I wouldn't encourage a clinician to sit on a patient if you can't handle that patient. But that doesn't mean that don't try and do something.
Starting point.
Do the basics. Start somewhere. But we are designed in Uganda that there is a level of care. You realize, let me give an example of like for pregnant women. At Health Center 3, you cannot get blood transfusion services. Okay? At Health Center 4, you can get blood transfusion services. And then at General Hospital and at Regional Referral, that's when you have specialized care. So that's when probably you will have an obstetrician to come in and support the mother. So there's a stepwise approach to the care. Now in emergency medicine, and this cuts across, the beauty about emergency medicine is that we see all sorts of patients. We see children, mothers, adults. There are basics, and these basics should not be put aside. I'm going to keep insisting that do the simple things and do them excellently.
Wow. Having looked at this now, you're pushing me to the area where I want us to address some of the challenges. And I think this is one of the biggest part of even our discussion, because and even I want to start with you. Later on we'll be going to Cliff to give us the ambulance side. But what are some of the challenges? And I can highlight 2 or 3 in my opinion that I've had at first. Then probably one is we have had challenges, and majorly in healthcare services, called something to do with attitude of practitioners. I was privileged to be a part of some case that was, I think, Sehat Uganda, the right to health, that case. And 3 patients lost lives because of attitude. Mothers lost lives. And I know you see these things every day as practitioners. There's a challenge of attitude and corruption. So you can start from but you may also be a bit of defense, but you can start from those.
Yes. So attitude has been a challenge in the healthcare system. It all comes down to the individual. And most times you realize that people tend to forget their oath that they took.
Why they are in those places.
Why they're in those places. We are there to save life, okay? And you're going to realize that if you're in a situation or if you're in an environment whereby people are, I know, yes, people are chasing money, people are chasing this, and there are a lot of complaints about how we're not getting enough salary, we're not getting enough money, there are not equipment, and so on and so forth. But as healthcare professionals, we need to remember the humility that we came with, and the whole purpose of saving life. And this cross that is on Cliff's shirt right here,
the snake.
The snake. It's a snake on a cross.
On a cross. Oh, yeah.
And it's a very, very important sign, because if you go back even to the medieval times, healthcare professionals were always considered very humble people, because they offer a service.
Must be approachable.
Exactly. It's a service you give. So you need to have that right kind of mindset, and money will come, all these other things will come, but it's always service first. So I would say maybe that this challenge needs to be addressed with leadership.
Okay.
Yes, it has to be addressed with leadership, because if you have the right kind of leaders, if you have leaders who are very passionate about what they're doing, sometimes this passion and this kind of mentality will creep down to the different people. It reflects on the rest, yes. And also, now to take us away from the attitude problem, you do realize, Felix, there are other challenges.
They are, and we would want to look at them as well, Dory.
One of the challenges, again, that I'd want to tackle is human resource. And it's right from training to recruitment to retention of human resource. We have a training need, especially in emergency medicine, right from nurses to doctors to emergency technicians on the ambulances. And it's just of recent that we have emergency physicians who have graduated from Makerere University and Mbarara University. It's just of recent that we have emergency nurses who have graduated, you know, and it's just of recent that we have a course that's accredited for emergency care practitioners.
Okay. And where is that taught, though?
It's taught in Rubaga.
The hospital?
There's a training school affiliated to the hospital. So that's where we have the accredited course.
So far now.
Wow. Yes. So as you can see, the specialty of emergency care is still young.
There's great need
in Uganda. There's a great need. But like I said, there are so many emergency care courses that are being done, but it's still not enough. In terms of recruitment, we all know that if they're not trained people, where are they going to be recruited? But also, in terms of, let's look at government processes. If you look at the Ministry of Public Service, there is a structure for emergency care practitioners that was recently approved. So things are starting to take shape, you know. So right now, in the structure, there is a position for emergency physician, there's a position for ambulance drivers, there's a position for emergency care practitioners in the government system, which is a plus for us. But now that process, the issue of retention now comes in. How do you retain these people?
Where are your people going? Who's taking them? You could tell us so we can say how to help. Do you want us to stop them at the airport? So where are they going? In private practice? And
that's the thing. So most times there's a lot of brain drain, and it's not just on emergency medicine.
That's true.
It's other specialities.
People looking for greener
pastures, yes. But you see, if we don't develop our home, if we don't develop where we started from, who's going to do it for us? So we need to go back, and it goes back to that same challenge you addressed about attitude. If we don't change the mindset of a practitioner, of a doctor, of a nurse, that we need to develop our country, we need to develop our system. And it's something I've always talked about. Systems are not computers, they are not machines. Systems are people like me and you. And we need to have the right set of people in the right place at the right time. So that you can develop a system that's going to work for our country in Uganda. That's going to be, it has to be in context with what we have and who we have trained and what kind of service we're offering and to who. So it has to start from an individual, from the right mindset, and this will creep down, and with time I'm hopeful that things will get better.
Just one question as I bring in Ndugu Cliff there. Is this, do people study a bit of attitude and should you be thinking of Cliff putting a course in your studies to do with attitude and character? I don't know, because I'm imagining last time I saw a doctor sitting in the middle of a road striking. It is unsightly, you know. some things, don't you just in a simple 1 minute, 30 seconds, don't you think we should be having that discussion?
Yeah, in medical school, yes, in medical school there is a full course unit on professional development and also medical ethics. Also, as you go through your master's training, there's a full training on professional development. There are certain medical ethics that you're trained into.
Have you seen a doctor in torn jeans? I'll leave that. I'll cross over to my brother Cliff there.
Yes.
Let's just try to address some of the challenges we are facing as people who, the practitioners of this ambulance work. I understand we have very many challenges. Very many. For you people just don't understand. You find an officer making way for an RDC or an LC5, but not for an ambulance.
I know.
It is painful.
Quite painful. You know, the reason why Association of Ambulance Professionals of Uganda was born was because of the many numerous challenges that we have observed. Before even this association, there were ambulances, but as observation will see, there are quite many challenges. And some of these challenges are institutional, some of these challenges are operational, and some of these challenges are structural. Okay. Now, if I will put it in the context of institutional challenges, it is one thing to have this vehicle on it is labeled ambulance, okay? But what matters is what is inside this vehicle. Does what exists in the vehicle take care of somebody who is sick? Is one of the biggest questions that we actually ask ourselves, because we observed that structurally many people had money to buy vehicles and label them ambulance and put them on the road that they are ambulances. But when these vehicles are moving with persons who are sick, you find one ambulance has packed 6 people inside.
Like a transport?
Like a transport. And that's not the intention of an
ambulance. We also saw one government ambulance with pineapples. Okay,
so those are some of the challenges we're talking about. So ambulance, the association exists to streamline some of these challenges in a way that we want to standardize. There were no standards.
Yes.
We want to have a standard that if you want to have an ambulance, there's a certain standard that you must meet with your ambulance.
Qualify to have.
Even if you are, whoever you are, for whatever intention you want to create your ambulance, they must meet certain standard. It must meet that standard that this machine is going to save life of people. Okay. It is going to be on the road and drive persons safely.
For the right purpose.
And then number 2, the people who drive these ambulances must be trained to be oriented like, not just like any driver who has been driving a taxi, you put in an ambulance now that you are driving. No. We want an ambulance driver who has gone through ambulance driver training, and they must be equipped with the knowledge of a basic life support, because you are taking a patient, the patient is going to change condition, and you must stop and then take care of this patient.
Where is that done?
We do it in the ambulance society.
You have that,
and even the Emergency Care Society does.
Oh,
there's a spectrum of courses.
Probably many people don't know. I've seen MPs buy ambulances and they give them to their village friends who will vote them. A member of parliament had an accident in an ambulance, I think for Nakawa. That is, what is the name of the former member of parliament. He had a terrible accident, almost lost a leg. I think when he was driving an ambulance himself, the accident was in an ambulance. I don't know if you heard of the case.
Yes.
So probably that is quite informative. That you assist in that.
Yeah. So all those are some of the challenges why we exist. So when you standardize these kind of things, you are able to see a very structured way of how services are going to be provided, and that's one of the core reasons why the association exists. And right now, as we talk now, a team of our trainers in Ambulance Association of Uganda are in Mbarara. Training the community. We have different courses for a lay person, we have courses for a health worker, we have courses for organizations. Like right now, there's what we call community first aid responders training. Meaning that in the community, if there's an emergency, if anybody falls sick, what can you do? As like Doreen said, if I start choking here, what will the people in UPC do to me to help me survive? So the Ambulance Association of Uganda is training that, because some of the things that bring patients to hospital can actually be addressed right at the scene of the problem. So if we train these people, everybody in developed countries, this training starts in primary schools. Everybody is oriented So the lack of those kind of things are the reasons why ambulances exist. But then leave alone that. Once the ambulance is on the road, I will come back to what you said earlier. The ambulance has picked a patient. The person is, the life is being threatened, and he needs to reach a facility where a definitive treatment can be given to this person. But we have our roads here which are narrow, and everybody is struggling to run wherever he wants to go, and the ambulance wants way and nobody wants to give way. Surprisingly, when the government vehicles, needless to say, when they are moving with their crew, it is okay for wherever the pavement they can do that. But you see, it comes back to the same thing called attitude. While health workers have attitude, the community also needs to change that attitude. When there's an ambulance on the road and it is giving a siren, please give way.
And it has a right of way in the Constitution.
It has a right in the Constitution, the law. Give way because there's a life at stake. Somebody is about to die.
But who needs to hear this in particular, Cliff? Is it the officers? Because they are manning these roads. I have been to this down here. An ambulance puts on a siren, I hope it's called that,
yes.
For almost 10 minutes. And there's an officer has closed their ears to that. They are letting cars which are carrying kosho, bananas. Who can wait? Like no one.
You know, it's a big challenge. One of the there are quite many reasons why that happens. First of all, the nature of the road, the way the roads are designed. Does not mean that's not the way people can actually open the way and the ambulance passes them in. That's one of the biggest challenges, which is a very structural problem addressed by means of works and so on and so forth, needless to say. But the biggest challenge is the people who are driving, they need to know that this person the ambulance taken could be your child, could be your father, could be your own relative.
Yeah,
so why don't you make way? It's an attitude. For me, when I'm driving, and the moment I hear an ambulance, I must just leave way.
Yes.
Because I know what it means. But for somebody, he stops in the middle and doesn't want to give way, and he actually is competing with the ambulance. That's a big challenge, something to do with the entire attitude of everybody in the country. So we need a mindset change of the entire citizen of this country, that we must value what ambulance do. Much as we are committed in saving life, we have this challenge. You spend 30 minutes for a journey that takes 5 minutes. Or 2 hours for a journey that's supposed to take 20 minutes. Simply because the public doesn't respect what you're supposed to be doing. So my cry to the public is that when an ambulance is passing, please give way. It could be it could be your relative, it could be your mother, it could be whoever is very close to you. And the next thing you are going to hear is that your person died in the ambulance when there was no way.
It was yourself who obstructed the road.
And then the other issue is that we have a challenge that the ambulances, much as there are a few ambulances in the country, we do not have a very designated telephone number to call that I want this ambulance and come here quickly. That's a system issue.
And that was the question I wanted to ask.
And our cry as an ambulance professional is that we have this challenge. We can't have public get to us in a centralized manner. And I know Ministry of Health is doing something about it, but it also comes back to having one designated number which anybody can call, and I will be able to see on my ambulance communication system that this call is coming from a location X. Because the telephone can be linked to a GPRS to know where this person's home is, where I can maneuver, and I can decide whether to use the ambulance, which type of ambulance, or I must send somebody ahead to go and attend to the person before the ambulance arrives. So a communication line is actually required. And I think this is something that government will have to address through its system of granting that designated number, because all this is being controlled by the communication department, UCC. So our cry is that if we have this number, linking and coordinating all ambulances in the entire country will be very, very easy. To just be a call away.
Awesome. Now, our time is running short, and I just wanted to have conclusions from the both of you, and I'll start with yourself, my brother Cliff there. What would be your parting shots relating to ambulances and how they execute their work? Any message for our viewers out there? And government as well.
Yes, viewers, we as ambulance professional of Uganda, we are available to serve this country, and they would like to say that the public should use these services. Do not wait for your person to become very sick before you call an ambulance. Aware that there could be challenges with the financial to commit, or the ambulances are too few, but the available ambulances can actually save a great life.
Yeah.
So I encourage you to use these ambulances, and when these ambulances are moved on the road, whether you're a driver, whether whoever you are, allow these ambulances a way to go so that they can actually take this person for his life to be saved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coming to you, Dr. Doreen, what are your parting shots in relation to emergency care and its practice lately in the country?
Yes, thank you, Felix. So my message is to the healthcare professionals, the nurses, the doctors, the ambulance providers all over the country, that in the profession that we are in, we're in the business of saving life. And it's a service that we offer. It's a noble profession. So let's go back to our basics. Let's have a mindset change. Let's have an attitude change. Let's focus on health service delivery. Let's improve the way we change and improve the way we operate in regards to patient care. Emergency care can start with the basics. And as the Emergency Care Society of Uganda, we have the platform to offer different courses and different trainings that can support you in your practice. So let's remember what we are doing, which is saving life. So I will repeat what I said, learn the simple things and do them excellently.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Doreen and Cliff, for coming, and majorly also from both associations, but also to Ugandans out there. There's a lot that leaves to be desired in terms of how we take care of other people. Like Cliff was saying, you also can be part of a system. You have seen many people, sometimes because of little human resource, maybe the car has one person, you know, be a part of this whole noble cause of saving lives. But we'll continue to give you updates. We'll have Doreen and Cliff quite often here to still discuss the same challenges that we face and also the opportunities that come with this particular line of practice. But thank you so much for also watching. You've been good viewers and listeners since the hour of 6:30. And next will be Good Morning Uganda Extra. Have yourselves a good day.
Labor Day, or International Workers' Day, is an annual holiday that takes place on 1st May to celebrate the achievements of workers. Uganda will join the rest of the world to celebrate under the theme Promoting Positive Work